The rain had been falling for hours, turning the city streets into a blur of lights and water. It wasn't the soft, playful kind of rain that made you want to dance in it. It was heavy, relentless, soaking everything it touched. Umbrellas flipped inside out, jackets clung to shivering bodies, and the air smelled of wet concrete and distant coffee shops. Daniel stood at the bus stop, his hood pulled over his head, water dripping down the side of his face. His shoes were already wet through, and he had given up trying to stay completely dry. He was used to days like this, long, cold, and inconvenient. He sighed and shifted his weight, glancing at his watch. The bus was late again. That's when he noticed her. She was standing a few feet away, right under the cracked plastic cover of the bus shelter. Her hair, a dark chestnut brown, was damp and clung to her cheeks in soft curls. She wore a cream-colored sweater that had clearly lost the battle against the rain, and her jeans were darkened by water at the knees. She didn't look at anyone, her gaze fixed on the small, laminated bus schedule posted on the wall as though it held the answers to all of life's problems. Something about her seemed different. She didn't have the hurried, impatient air of the average commuter. Instead, she stood there quietly, her lips pressed together in thought. Daniel couldn't help but notice the way she occasionally patted her sweater pocket and frowned, like she was checking for something that wasn't there. Finally, she turned slightly toward him. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. "Do you know if the bus driver takes card payments?" Daniel shook his head. "No, cash only." She bit her lip and looked away for a moment, her shoulders slumping just a little. Then she let out a quiet laugh, though it was more embarrassed than amused. "I guess I'm walking home, then." Daniel tilted his head, curious. "Why, I left my wallet at the office," she admitted, tucking a wet strand of hair behind her ear. "I didn't even realize until I got here. The driver won't let me on without paying," and she glanced out at the pouring rain and gave a helpless shrug. "Well, I'm not exactly dressed for a 5-mile walk." Her voice wasn't desperate, she wasn't trying to get pity from him. But there was something about the quiet way she said it, like she wasn't used to asking for help. Daniel didn't think twice. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his slightly worn wallet. Inside was a small amount of cash, enough for his bus fare and maybe a coffee later, but he didn't even hesitate. He pulled out a couple of crumpled bills and held them out to her. "Here, this should cover it." Her eyes widened. "Oh, no, I can't." "Sure you can," he said, smiling faintly. "It's just a bus fare. Don't worry about it." She looked at the money, then at him, like she was trying to decide if this was some kind of trick. Finally, she reached out, her fingers brushing his as she took the bills. Her hand was cold from the rain. "I'll pay you back," she said softly. "Not necessary." Her lips curved into a small smile. It wasn't the kind of smile people gave out of politeness, it was warmer, almost like it carried a hidden thank you she couldn't put into words. "You're kind," she said, her voice so quiet it almost got lost in the sound of the rain. The bus arrived moments later, its headlights cutting through the gray curtain of water. People shuffled forward, eager to get out of the downpour. She lingered for a moment before stepping aboard, glancing back at him one last time. Through the foggy, rain-streaked bus window, she looked at him as though trying to memorize his face. And Daniel, standing there in his damp jacket with water dripping from his hood, watched the bus pull away, not realizing that the woman he had just helped didn't need his money at all. She could have bought every bus on the route if she wanted to. But that wasn't the point. For her, in that moment, his small act of kindness wasn't about the bills he handed her, it was about the fact that he had helped her without knowing or caring who she really was. And though Daniel didn't know it yet, this simple, rainy evening had just set into motion something that would change both their lives forever. 3 weeks had passed since that rainy evening. Daniel had almost forgotten about the girl at the bus stop. Almost. Every now and then, when he was on his delivery runs or sipping a late-night coffee alone, her face would flash in his mind, the way she had smiled, soft and genuine, as if she wasn't used to strangers doing something kind without expecting anything in return. Today was like any other day. Daniel worked part-time delivering coffee orders around the city for a small cafe. The tips weren't great, but the job kept him moving, and he liked catching glimpses of different lives in every office he visited. His last order of the day was to the tallest building in the city, the shimmering glass tower that everyone knew as Matthews Enterprises. He'd never been past the lobby before. Normally, a receptionist would meet him, take the coffee, and that would be it. When Daniel stepped into the building, he was greeted by the familiar rush of cool air conditioning and the faint scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air. The marble floors gleamed under his sneakers, and the lobby ceiling stretched high above, dotted with warm golden lights. He walked to the front desk, balancing a tray of cappuccinos, and smiled politely at the receptionist. "Delivery for Matthews Enterprises, 8th floor. Please wait here," she replied, picking up the phone. Daniel stood quietly, glancing around the spacious lobby. A large elevator in the corner suddenly chimed, its doors sliding open with a soft hiss. And then, he froze. Stepping out of the elevator was her. The rain-soaked girl in the cream sweater was gone. In her place stood a woman with flawless posture, her chestnut brown hair styled in perfect waves, her fitted navy blue suit making her look like she belonged on the cover of a magazine. She walked with quiet authority, a small team of assistants following her, each holding files and tablets. Daniel's first instinct was disbelief. His mind scrambled to connect this polished, confident woman to the one he'd met at the bus stop. He could still remember her damp hair clinging to her cheeks, the hesitant way she'd accepted his help. Now, she looked untouchable. Then she saw him. The bustling rhythm of the lobby seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Her eyes lit up, not with surprise, but with recognition. A slow, knowing smile curved her lips. "Daniel," she said, her voice warm and amused, "the bus ticket hero." He blinked, still holding the coffee tray like a shield. "Wait, you work here." Before she could answer, the receptionist leaned closer, lowering her voice but not quite enough to hide the awe. "Work here, she owns this place. That's Claire Matthews, CEO of Matthews Enterprises." The words sank in slowly, like raindrops on dry soil. CEO. The woman he'd given a few crumpled bills to could probably buy 1,000 bus tickets without blinking. Daniel felt his face heat. Wow, okay, he laughed awkwardly. "This is unexpected." Claire stepped closer, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. Her assistants, sensing the moment, quietly drifted away toward the elevators. "I was hoping I'd run into you again," she said, her voice playful but sincere. "Yeah, well, I'm usually in jeans delivering coffee to fancy offices, so, mission accomplished." He tried to keep it light, but his mind kept replaying the image of her standing in the rain, looking so ordinary. Now she was anything but. Claire glanced at the tray in his hands. "Who are these for?" Order for the 8th floor." She smiled. "Cancel it, I'll pay for them myself. You're having lunch with me today." Daniel blinked. "Lunch, in there." He nodded toward the private glass-walled conference room on the far side of the lobby. "In my office," she corrected, her tone gentle but confident. "I owe you a proper thank you. Besides," she tilted her head, her eyes holding his. "I like people who don't try to impress me with what they own." Her words caught him off guard. Most people, upon learning who she was, would have tripped over themselves to flatter her. But she seemed to value that he hadn't. Daniel's lips twitched into a small smile. "All right, but just so you know, I'm not great at fancy lunches." Claire's laugh was soft but genuine, and for a second, she looked exactly like the woman from that rainy evening, the one whose smile had stayed with him for weeks. As she led him toward the private elevator, Daniel couldn't help but wonder how in the world a simple act of kindness had brought him here, standing next to a millionaire CEO who had every reason to forget him, but didn't. Lunch turned into many lunches. Days into months. The woman who ran a company worth millions fell in love with the man who never cared about her money. One evening, they stood on her penthouse balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly below. Daniel said quietly, "You know, I never imagined giving someone bus fare would change my life." She laughed, holding his hand. "And I never imagined the man who gave me a few crumpled bills would be the one to steal my heart." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Guess we're both richer now, just not in the way banks measure it." Her eyes glistened as she whispered, "The day you gave me that bus money, you didn't know it, but you were giving me something far more precious." "What's that?" he asked. "My forever," she said, pulling him into a kiss as the city lights twinkled like a million witnesses to their love. From that rainy evening at the bus stop to candlelit dinners on a penthouse balcony, Daniel and Claire's story had been anything but ordinary. What began with a few crumpled bills and a kind smile had blossomed into something far richer than either of them could have imagined. Claire had all the wealth, status, and influence anyone could dream of, but it was Daniel's genuine heart, free from expectations or greed, that captured her completely. And Daniel, who once believed his life would always be measured in small paychecks and quiet routines, had found himself in a love story that no amount of money could buy. In the end, it wasn't about the bus fare, the CEO title, or the difference in their worlds. It was about the simple truth they had discovered, that love, in its purest form, begins when you see someone not for what they have, but for who they are. And for both of them, that rainy night had given them something far more valuable than money could ever touch. It had given them each other.